Sales training first is for my beautiful brown friend Richard Yeager. He asked that we do this one special. He actually didn't. I'm just jacking with him. So here we go, guys. Hopefully this goes okay. I think it may be too much reading. I hope I can give a little bit to it. But I also am going to say I don't know if I'm good at this, guys, because I like them better and I know where I'm going, but I can never, ever, ever get an uninterrupted time to go. I've always got a flow going and then boom, crisis, and I got to leave. So this one was written over a period of 5 different sittings. Hopefully it flows okay, especially since I plagiarized the first third of it. I'm still waiting on permission for what I'm about to do, by the way. So on July 17th in the Oklahoman, Key Raymond wrote an excellent article. I strongly encourage you to look it up and read it. But for now, I just want to use it as a background of this lesson. His article begins in this way. The stranger leapt to his feet, rushing through the darkness with surprising speed. I stepped back to avoid his attack, but he was on me in an instant. His hands grabbed my shirt. This close, I could smell the stench of sweat and hear the rapid-fire Spanish he was spewing too quickly for me to understand. I heard the word pesos. I heard curse words. Then one of his hands clapped onto my crotch. That prompted an instinctive move. I threw an off-balance punch without much power behind it. The blow glanced off him, but created a little distance. Square now, I had an advantage in size and reach. My next punch reached its apex just as he moved into its space, making it as perfect a blow as any boxer ever threw. A knuckle of my right middle finger broke on impact, but I was too amped to feel pain. My assailant fell back, tripping over his overturned motorbike. I don't know if he was knocked cold or simply stunned, but soon I hear him saying he was sorry, over and over. Lo siento, lo siento. You're gonna be sorry, I thought. And then, wait a minute, let's hit pause on this. The thing about stories is you can tell them however you want. I tell this story about my attempted mugging in the same way most of the time. I'm a good Samaritan coming to someone's aid, when suddenly the man I'm trying to help turns into an attacker. I react with controlled fury, unleashing a 2-punch knockout. I go from savior to victim to hero in a matter of seconds. Despite my use of physical violence, I'm the good guy. There are other, less charitable ways to tell this tale. Perhaps the man was stunned and confused after some sort of accident. Maybe he'd been mugged and thought I was his attacker, coming back for more. Maybe he was drunk on cheap Dominican rum, drugged out of his mind or mentally ill. Perhaps his hand accidentally landed on the part of my male body that Draymond Green likes to kick. Maybe I responded too soon with violence. The most likely alternative scenario is I simply blundered into a dangerous situation because I was young and stupid and ill, and I escaped due to dumb luck. Skipping a fair chunk. The guy I punched, I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. Instead, I'm saying that my memories of the event are shaped by the way I edited the script. I wanted to be a hero, so when I tell the story, it's all active verbs and adjectives. I've censored the scene, blurred out the awkward part so that when you see it through my description, there's no question that I'm the protagonist, an innocent man wielding the strong hand of justice. My version may be wrong. At best, it's incomplete. The reality is that there are so many different lessons that relate to sales and storytelling, I cannot list them all. That first page was his. I'll go back to my second in a moment. There's too many here. There's so many takes to take on this, but the parts I highlighted are what I want to focus on. The first line, the thing about stories is you can tell them however you want. The next is, instead, I'm saying that my memories of the event are shaped by the way I edited the script. I wanted to be a hero, so when I tell the story, it's all active verbs and adjectives. It was a great writing the story. Go back and reread it. It was a beautiful telling of. But how you edit the script dramatically affects it. And remember, we can tell a story however we want. There are so many aspects here. You can get lost on the political ramification of it if you want. You can get lost in the differences of memory. You can sit there and think, oh, this directly impacts. I mean, honestly, a decent psychologist goes through this with you. They find that story that shaped you young and help you re-edit the script because at some level you're not being fair and it's taken something wrong path. Good golly, wish I had time to go and get that done for my own psyche. I really, truly do. But going back to my next page. Short one is this. Remember this truth as the listener and not just the speaker. Remember as the listener, not just the speaker, that every story can be told how it needs to be. But today's lesson, I want to focus on you, the speaker. When you tell stories, how do you define yourself? I wanted to be a hero, so when I tell the story, it's all active verbs and adjectives. Are you the hero of your own story? Are you an anti-hero? Are you a borderline superhero? Do you use enough description to ensure that you are believable when the tale is told? Do you have enough action verbs and adjectives? Do you have enough adverbs? Do you have enough passive verbs? Who are you, and do you have enough script description? Can the story be believed? Keep in mind your listener wants to believe you, but he or she needs to be able to believe you. That is the beauty of it. The comedy, let's go simple. A comedian gets on stage. The audience is there because they want to laugh. The person listening to you tell your story wants to believe you. They will give you every opportunity to be funny. They will give you every opportunity to tell a believable story. You just have to make sure they can. Or in other words, don't make sure they can't. I hope that made sense. Probably too many negatives. I don't know Mr. Raymond, the man that wrote the article. He's probably a heck of a guy. And he might be an amazingly powerful physical specimen, just a beast of a human. But based on his photo in the paper and my experience with reporters, he isn't. But note how he tells the story. He doesn't tell it as if he were a beast. He doesn't tell it as if he were an unconquerable force that men quail from because of the sheer fierce nature of his presence. No, he tells it in a way we believe. An average person to a maybe even below average man. One who cares about others, but when challenged in the most primal way, he is so deeply male that when thus threatened, he instinctively acted in a way that conquered his opponent. Don't we all believe that to be true about ourselves? No matter how dominant, powerful, secure, and arrogant we are, all of us have a little bit of doubt, have a little bit of we're not better than anybody else, we're not sure, we're just the common man. All of us believe we care about others and are there to serve them. But deep down, we really want to believe about ourselves. We want to believe that when the push comes to shove, when the chips hit the table, when all the cards are out, that we will rise up from the deepest primal maleness, femininity, however you want to look at it, and we will have what it takes. So we love a story about somebody possibly even less than us that did it, because it means we can put ourselves there. That's what's so wonderful, for we can put ourselves into the story and believe we could do what he did, maybe even do it better. Remember, the story at some level must be true about your audience. It must be at some level true about the listener. They have to be able to relate. We have these stories every day. We can even tell these stories about others from the standpoint of being in there as an observer. You really can. Matter of fact, in sales, more often than not, that is how we do it. Especially if the role we're going to have for the person we are selling is observer. If I observe this client, I'm only going to observe you. How do I tie this story and make it work? How we tell them. Who is the hero And how can the client, the listener, relate so as to be able to see themselves in the role? So when I'm telling a story, when I'm captivating them, when I'm giving them what they want to believe, do I just tell a story about some random person with facts? Or do I place it in? Do I read this person and think, who have I had that succeeded that they might see as being like them, but maybe one notch below? And if they could do it, so can I, and I can enter the role. Always tell your story with emotion, for it is emotion that moves. Feel it in yourself. I'll never forget a client I had that came in and literally barely could move. Man was in a terrible accident, and he's in a wheelchair. And it's one of those, for some reason about the spine injury, he had to be at almost a 45-degree angle at all times. His head could be moved here, and that was it. But he could barely move one finger. And through that, he drove this whole chair. And I'm talking to him, I'm trying to be professional, I'm going through everything. I see no way he's going to be able to do this. And he says, no, I want to build this house. And I make a living doing X, Y, Z. And I'm like, wow, it's incredible. And of course, he has some disability as well. And I said, well, who's going to run the job for you? Total screw up. I'm going to run it. And I, being me, said, great. You know, we'll have some access. He goes, don't worry, we'll make sure we get around it. So you know what you did? We built into the budget. The very first thing we built, before they even poured the stem wall, was the ramp. We had a portable ramp. And this man ran this entire job every day. He dropped by like any other client. He made the calls. He scheduled the subs. Somehow, he wrote the checks. He went on site and he reviewed everything, even the ground plumbing before it was filled. We had the ramp and he went through and he did it all. And at the end of the day, one of the happiest clients I've ever had. And the joy on his face for what he achieved, and the thrill he had for what he'd been able to get for a payment he could afford. He honestly didn't even care as much, although he dug the fact he'd had 50 grand equity. That didn't matter as much to him. Having a house, something he had achieved when he'd been told I can't, even by me, at a payment he could afford that fit his needs and lifestyle. That was so cool. So that's probably the most extreme. Now I do know time gets in and some people can handle and some can't. And there's adaptations and it costs a little bit more to build the ramp and do some minor things for his. But what we can do. Guys, that's a true story. Tell me a client I can't tell that to, that can look me in the eye after and go, I'm not real sure I can handle this. Yeah, be careful not to be too heavy-handed. I'll be honest with you, I very rarely use the story. I can usually find one that relates to people better. I very rarely use the story because again, remember when I joked earlier, I can stand to go to a therapist myself and wash out some of my childhood own mental issues. I feel like I'm taking advantage of somebody that deserves more. I can only use that story in its purest way because of my own limitations I place on myself. Is that good, bad? Probably not. Probably not good, probably not bad, probably just is. That's not even a great job of telling a story, but hopefully it helps get a little bit across. And I'm part of it, but I'm not the main one. I'm just the storyteller. Hope this helped. Hope you can read it. Hope you liked it. If you didn't, my sincerest apologies. But remember, what we do in marketing, what we do in sales, one of the biggest elements is entertaining, storytelling, motivating, guiding. We are preachers. It's just what we're teaching. Have a great day, guys. Thank you very much.